Hello, this is Dr. Victoria Skirbo, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. Today we're going to talk about the Astrology and Kabbalah of the month of April 2018. And as we do every month, we're going to look at it through the lens of the Tarot, the Tree of Life, and the Astrology. Okay, so as we do every month, we're going to take the number of the month, which is a 4, and add it to the universal year. We remember that 2018 is the universal year of an 11. If we add these two vibrations together, we get a 15 vibration, base number 6, and you can see that it's written here, the 15-6. And right under the 15-6 we see, for those of you who are familiar with the tarot, we see the Devil card. And this is the 15th trump card in the tarot deck. And so there is significance in this month concerning issues around the Devil card, and we will discuss those next. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Devil card, the 15th trump in the tarot deck of the major arcana. And of course this is the card right here in color. And here we see the symbol of two people chained to a pillar. They have horns on their head and they have tails on coming out of their rear ends. And so the horns and the tails are really symbols of our lower nature, our animal nature. And we can see that our animal nature is chained to this pillar, which is really a sort of a cube or a square. Of course, squares are symbolic of our earthly nature and our time here on planet Earth and in manifested form. And so we have these two individuals, a male and a female, chained to form. And above them, between them, we have this devil. And the devil is actually holding a torch. I don't know if you can see that. Let me move it over a little. Okay, he's holding a torch right here. But what's interesting about this torch is that the torch is giving no light. Okay, and we can see all this darkness and all this blackness behind him. And he is, of course, symbolized as the cloven-hooved god Pan. And Pan in mythology was an earth, sort of a forest fertility god that the Christians borrowed and made into Satan. But the word Satan actually comes from Saturn, okay, the planet Saturn. And Saturn is the planet that deals with our three-dimensional reality. It is the ring that we cannot pass in our physical bodies. Saturn is, one of the symbols of Saturn is the Grim Reaper. Often Saturn is seen as a skeletal figure because the Saturn rules the bones through the sign of Capricorn. And this card actually is connected to the sign of Capricorn. So in the tarot, this particular vibration is considered a Capricorn vibration. And on his hand, I don't know if you can see it, but the hand that's being raised, he has the symbol of Saturn. And so this card deals with the illusion that there is nothing beyond our three-dimensional reality. There is nothing beyond this particular lifetime. And if we think that, this lifetime is the only lifetime, this sort of imprisons us. And yet Satan, or the fallen angel Lucifer, which is, they're kind of interchangeable, right? Lucifer, the name Lucifer actually means bringer of light. And so perhaps, Lucifer as a fallen angel has come to, in one way, bring us light. Now, I know that's going to be a little, some people might have something to say about that, but that is my feeling with that. So let's talk about this on the Tree of Life. So let me see if I can just, before we get there, one other thing I want to point out is that this card, for those of you who study tarot maybe has seen the correlation of this card with this card. Okay, this is the Lover's card. And we can see that we have the same two people here. The only difference is that the ones on the right in the Lover's card don't have horns and don't have tails. And instead of the devil between them, there is the angel. And instead of a pillar that they're chained to is a mountain between them, symbolizing sort of the energy and determination it takes to come together in love. These are symbolic of male and female, but it's also symbolic of yin and yang, and it's symbolic of our conscious mind and our unconscious or subconscious mind, and how do we bring those things together. And so we have the angel here, and then we have the devil on this side, but they both have wings, interestingly enough, so they both have the capacity to sort of rise up. Okay, so now I want to look at where this falls on the Tree of Life, and I'm going to try to do this camera work kind of strangely, and this isn't the greatest camera work, so I'm just going to point here and see if I can pull it in. Apologize again, sort of doing this on my own. I could really use a camera person, if anybody's interested. I guess I could get my husband to do it for me. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to bring this just a little closer. Hope you guys don't get a little nauseated from me moving the camera around so much. Okay, here we go. I don't know, can you see it? Alright, I don't think so. I'm going to bring it, I'm going to do it a little differently. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we can see the Tree of Life, and we have a path that is colored in yellow, and I'm going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see it. Okay, and there we have April, and we have the sign for Capricorn. We have the number 15-6, and we have the word devil. So this is where the devil card sits in the tarot on the Tree of Life. This is the path that connects Hod, which is our concrete mind, to Tiphereth, which is our higher self. It connects our solar plexus chakra to our heart chakra. The path of the devil is one in which we come to realize that there is something beyond what our five senses can show us. And one of the, it's sort of an ego-busting energy. It is one of the three paths that connects the higher self to the lower self. Okay, we have the path of the devil, and then we have the path between Yesod, which is straight below the yellow circle there, Yesod, and then we have the path that connects Netzach, which is to the right, to the center, Tiphereth, and we have the signs of Scorpio connecting Netzach to Tiphereth. We have Capricorn connecting Hod to Tiphereth, and then Yesod to Tiphereth is the sign of Sagittarius. That was actually last month's vibration. So from the Sephiroth on the right, Netzach, up to the center, that was the vibration of February. Vibration of March went from Yesod to the Sun, and now we have the vibration of the devil connecting Hod to Tiphereth. And so these last 3 months have been about connecting our lower self with our higher self, or our higher mind. Okay. Now, in terms of chakras, of course, the heart chakra deals with relationship. It deals with love. It deals with our ability to be in groups, to work together for the community. It is the sixth Sephiroth, and so in that respect, it vibrates to the sixth. And the sixth is love, and it's community, and it's responsibility. So our need to be responsible to ourselves and others is really found in Tiphereth. And then we have Hod, and Hod is the place connected with the planet Mercury. Tiphereth is connected with the Sun, so we have the planet Mercury here. And Hod is the concrete mind, and it is part of the solar plexus And we also have Netzach over here all the way on the right. So Hod and Netzach make up the solar plexus energy, along with the path that runs between them, which is actually the 16-7 path, which I haven't put in there. But that path that goes across, which is the path of the tower, which is actually the path for next month. Okay, let's go back here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at astrologically today what's going on with Mercury and what's going on with Capricorn, because this path is activated, and this will give us an idea of what's in store for April. Okay, so as we start off the month of April, let's look at what's going on with Mercury. Now, as April begins, we have Mercury in Aries, but as we probably know, Mercury is retrograde at this time, and it actually went retrograde on March 22nd, and it has been retrograde since then, and it will go direct on April 15th. Mercury retrograde in Aries is rethinking, reviewing, reconstructing perhaps our ideas, Mercury, around all things Aries. And so here's some of the things that Aries is connected to. Aries is connected to our sense of identity. Who are we? We may be asking ourselves, who am I really at this time? Aries is a fire vibration. You know, who am I in connection to spirit? Because fire is spirit. Aries also has to do with actions. So this is a review around your actions as well as a review around your thoughts. How has my action or inaction served me or not served me? One of the other things that Aries is connected to is guns. And so we can certainly see that in the collective. There is a rethinking about our relationship to guns, what we think about it, and there is change around that. We can also look at this as our connection to war, because Aries is the god of war, right? And so what is our relationship to war? How do we feel about that? What do we think about that? How do we need to reframe? Like, who really is our enemy? That kind of thing. So we can see that that is happening at this time. And then we have where the... Okay, and so on the 1st of April, I'm sorry, I'm a little scattered here. On the 1st of April, the first aspect, major aspect that occurs is a conjunction between the Sun and Mercury. And this is what we call the highlight of the Mercury retrograde cycle. And this occurs at 12 degrees of Aries. I'm going to read to you from Dane Rudger's book, this one right here. You see that? Okay. What 12 degrees of Aries is. This is the sign. It says, a triangularly shaped flight of wild geese, an idealistic reliance upon a mental image of universal order. Okay? And the key word here is cosmic order. And so we are perhaps asking ourselves, how can we attune ourselves or align ourselves to the cosmic order as opposed to all this chaos that we find ourselves in? So we could be asking that question. Now, the other thing we want to look at is we want to look at what's going on in the sign of Capricorn. And we have 2 planets in Capricorn now, 2 of the further out planets. Of course, we have Pluto in Capricorn. That's been in there since 2008 and will continue to be there till 2024. Pluto in Capricorn has created a stress on the structures of society. It really is about a breaking down and rebuilding of the structures of society, those oppressive structures that prevent us from evolving. Pluto is the soul, Pluto is the evolutionary edge, so those structures that prevent us from evolving are coming down. Of course, there are a lot of structures coming down. Some will support us, some will not in our evolution. Those things that support us in our evolution need to be saved, perhaps rebuilt, and those that don't need to be let go of. And then we have Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn went into Capricorn was the 19th of December 2017. It's there for 2.5 years. And as Saturn moves through Capricorn, we are all getting a reality check. And we are all looking to see how the structure of our reality serves us or not, what works and what doesn't work. And so there will be a lot of structural changes with Saturn and Capricorn. Now, as we come into April, there are two major conjunctions, and this is the first one, and this is Mars to Saturn. Mars and Saturn will be making a conjunction at 9 degrees of Capricorn. And 9 degrees of Capricorn in the Sabian symbols, the symbol is an angel carrying a harp. And the key word here is attunement. And this is really about our connection to spirit and our connection to source and our connection to our higher selves. How do we attune to our higher selves? Now, Mars is the energy of action, and Saturn is the energy of structure. They are considered in Vedic astrology to be malefics, and they don't really blend well together. Saturn is a cold planet, Mars is a hot planet. And yet Saturn in Capricorn, where of course, Mars in Capricorn, where Mars is sitting right now, is in its dignity. And so even though Mars is a hot planet and is not all that, we'll say, comfortable next to cold Saturn, it's actually quite comfortable in the sign that Saturn rules. So Saturn brings the structure and Mars brings the energy. And so we're asking ourselves, how can we bring our energy to restructuring our lives in alignment and in attunement with our higher self? Now, this is the part of a 2-year cycle. It begins on April 2nd of 2018 and ends on March 31st of 2020. And at that time, the next Mars-Saturn conjunction is going to be occurring at 1 degree of Aquarius. And so that is probably one of the many steps that we take as we move closer and closer to the Aquarian age. And so this is very important. So wherever 9 degrees of Saturn falls in your natal chart, you are starting a new 2-year cycle. We are planting the seeds of your action to support the structure of your life. And this needs to be new structure, not the old, not building on the old. This is foundational work from the bottom up, and that's how we're going to be reforming ourselves and reforming our society. So these next 2 years should be quite exciting. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the next big conjunction that occurs in Capricorn. I'll be right back for that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the next big conjunction occurring in the sign of Capricorn, and that is the conjunction of Mars to Pluto. Now, Mars is considered our conscious desires, and Pluto is our unconscious soul desires. In evolutionary astrology, the astrology brought forth to the planet by Jeffrey Wolf Green, the relationship between Mars and Pluto can often determine what level of evolution you're working on, what point in the evolutionary cycle are you in your lifetime. So it's a pretty important combination, a pretty important planetary pair. Now, every 2 years, Mars makes a conjunction to Pluto in whatever sign Pluto happens to be in. It has, of course, been in Capricorn since 2008, and so from that time, we have been working on making our unconscious desire conscious around issues of power and authority, self-reliance, self-authority, coming to terms with our sense of power or powerlessness. Now, this latest conjunction occurs at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And this is the symbol. By accepting defeat gracefully, a general reveals nobility of character. This really talks about that oftentimes we learn our best lessons through our failures and not our successes. And it's how we interact at that time when we realize we have failed, that determines our character. And so we will have our character challenged through this period. Now, this is another 2-year cycle. All cycles with Mars and other planets last for 2 years. And there isn't going to be a Mars retrograde this year. So the Mars retrograde that occurs is actually occurring within the first quarter of the cycle. And if you see over here, let me see if I can do this. Whoops. So this is where we have the conjunction, and then the next major aspect is a square, and that square is going to be happening in February of 2019, 2019. So from April 26th of 2018 to February 2nd of 2019, Mars and Pluto, Mars moves in its relationship to Pluto only a quarter of the way, because we have a Mars retrograde cycle. So as I say this, you have to understand there's going to be a lot of starts and stops. There's this sense of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Do not get disappointed. Do not worry. If you feel yourself that you're not succeeding, this is part of the process. This 2-year cycle will go from April 26, 2017 through March 23rd of 2020. The next conjunction of these 2 planets will occur on March 23rd, 2020, and that occurs at 25 degrees of Capricorn. And so we'll have another opportunity to connect with our sense of power and powerlessness. So this is an important period of time where we are planting seeds. Okay, I'll be back. I'm going to come back and talk about just a few other things that are occurring this month that are not necessarily connected to Capricorn or Mercury that are important to talk about. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So here's a couple of other important things that are occurring in April that I want to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is on April 14th, we have a supportive 300-degree waning sextile between Pluto and Jupiter. This cycle actually began back in 2007. It was at the end of December. Pluto was just about ready to move out of Sagittarius, and Jupiter had spent about a year in Sagittarius. There was a conjunction, I believe it was at either 28 or 29 degrees of Sagittarius of Jupiter and Pluto. This is a 13-year cycle. Jupiter is expansion and Pluto is power. So there's a power of expansion. And it happens in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a very optimistic sign. It's also a sign where there's a righteousness about Sagittarius, what I believe to be true, the sign of truth. But it also can be the sign of lies, and it is also connected with religion or our beliefs. And oftentimes our beliefs are the hardest things to change. It's one of the things that we, even myself, who considers relatively open-minded, it's when somebody challenges a belief of mine, a long-held belief, it's difficult to listen to, it's difficult to hear it, but yet we need to hear it. We need to challenge each other in such a way where it's not an attack, but it's just a questioning of the belief. And through questioning of the belief and conversation, the polarity point of Sagittarius is Gemini, and in Gemini we communicate. And so there's a need to communicate. Well, this cycle has been going on since 2007. The next cycle between these two, I don't actually know. I can't tell you when the next one is. Might be 2020. Yes, it's 2020. It's 2020 and it occurs in Capricorn. A lot of conjunctions, or big conjunctions, are happening in 2020, and this is one of them. But this goes back to 2007, and if you remember, at least in the United States, 2007 is when the bubble burst, right? So all this optimistic, expansion, etc. Boom, the bubble burst, and we have been dealing with the consequences of that at this point. And so at this point with this sextile, we have an opportunity, there's an ease for us to change the structures of power and how we disseminate and share knowledge and power in a much more progressive way. So this is an opportunity for real progressive change at this time. So that's kind of exciting for somebody like myself who's politically progressive. Okay. You could also choose not to do anything. There's nobody forcing you. And yet that would be a golden opportunity wasted. Okay, so let's see. The other thing, I talked about Mercury going direct on the 15th of April. But besides that happening on the 15th of April, we have a new moon in the sign of Aries. And this Aries new moon is, even though the sun went into Aries on the 20th of March, the real sense of new beginnings comes with the Aries new moon. And it occurs at 27 degrees of Aries. And this is a symbol from Dane Rudger. Through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained. The keynote here is revision of attitude and inner reevaluation. And the key word is undaunted faith. And so this is a time where we can imagine something new, imagine something grand. And it may be difficult for some to really imagine things getting better because things look so dire. And yet it is in the border between chaos and order that evolution occurs. So if we're in a chaotic period, it just means that we're about to make an evolutionary leap. We're either going to make an evolutionary leap or we're going to perish. And I'm for the evolutionary leap, people. So let's make that evolutionary leap. So let's look at some of the things that are connected to this new moon, because it's very powerful. The new moon, the sun and moon at 27 degrees of Aries, is actually conjunct Uranus in Aries. Now, Uranus has been in Aries since 2010, 2011, and it will move out of Aries next month when it goes into Taurus. It will move back into Aries and then move back into Taurus in 2019 and be there for 7 years from that point and not see Aries. Once it's out of Aries, we're not going to see it in Aries for another 84 years. So it's a long time to wait. We won't see it, right? Our grandchildren may see it. So we have the Sun Moon conjunct Uranus. Uranus at this time is at 29 degrees of Aries, and the symbol for 29 degrees of Aries is the music of the spheres. Okay, and so here's another symbol of connecting with cosmic order, connecting with the flow of energy, and having the ability to sort of let go of all your perhaps egocentric ideals and move into that higher vibrational, higher self place. Uranus is the planet that wakes us up to something beyond the physical. Uranus is the planet that breaks us free from the devil, the chains around our neck that we see in the devil card, and the chain connected to the cube. I mean, if you really look at that card, the chains around those the man and woman's neck are very loose. They have the power to take the chains off. And Uranus works like Prometheus, bringing the fire of heaven and the fire of spirit down to men to know that they are not alone and they are not in the darkness. Okay, and so we can see that in this new moon. We also have this new moon conjunct Eris. Eris in Aries. Aries has been in Aries since I think it was 1928, 1929. It spends a long, long time in Aries. And Eris is the archetype of chaos, right? But she's also a goddess who was spurned because she was somewhat of a troublemaker. And so there's this warrior nature to Aries, to Eris, the sister of Aries. And so this is perhaps the angry feminine coming up and being seen, right? And so, but righteous anger, because we're dealing with suppression and oppression of the feminine for thousands and thousands of years. And now as the Aquarian age develops, because it's here, we're in a transitional age between Pisces and Aquarius. Pisces is a different energy. It has that energy of victim, victimizer, martyr, savior. And in Aquarius and Leo, it's the opposite sign of Aquarius. We're talking about our own creative spark and how we make the world better through sharing it and disseminating it for all people. So there's this sense of equality that comes with the Aquarian age, and that's one of the things that's the direction of evolution. So you can go with it or not, but I'm not guaranteeing anything good's going to happen. The other thing that's happening is that this sun, moon, new moon in Aries is also trine the galactic center. The galactic center is the center of our galaxy. We have a giant black hole there. And so the galactic center is at 28 degrees of Sagittarius. It says an old bridge over a beautiful stream is still in constant use. And this symbol is about something that was built a long, long time ago that we can still depend on to keep us moving, right? Keep the traffic moving, so to speak. And so this is reminding us that we do not have to reinvent the wheel here. There is knowledge out there. Part of that knowledge is astrological. There's occult knowledge out there. There's Kabbalah. There's all kinds of spiritual knowledge available to us if we avail ourselves to it. We are not alone, and we are not powerless to make the changes that we need to make. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is Chiron. I'll be right back with that. So one of the other big things that's happening in the month of April is that the planetoid Chiron, which has a orbit that spans between the orbit of Saturn and Uranus, Saturn being the structure of our reality, Uranus being breaking apart the structure of our reality to open us up to higher vibrational energies, is going to be moving into Chiron, which has that energy within it, is moving into Aries, and Aries is about initiation. It's a new cycle. Aries is always a new cycle. And so and Chiron is also the wounded healer, so it's about the wounds around Aries. So this could be identity wounds, how we identify ourselves, the wounds around that. It's also the wounds around violence, guns, war, unbridled masculine power, and then the disempowerment that men feel. This is an opportunity with Chiron in Aries to heal the masculine. Okay? As the feminine rises, the masculine needs healing. Okay? And that's the masculine in case of gender, but also the masculine within us. Our rights to ourselves, our rights to go and do what it is that we want to do, but doing it without hurting other people, right? We have the rights to want what we want, and yet we don't have the right to take it from somebody else. It's really about embodying it within yourself. That's part of the journey of Chiron in Aries. And Chiron goes into Aries on the 17th of April. And the symbol for 1 degree of Aries is a woman just risen from the sea, a seal embracing her. The keynote, emergence of new forms and the potentiality of consciousness. And this is the impulse to be. And that's really what Aries is all about, the impulse to be. So what I like to do is I like to see what the ruling planet of Aries is doing in the chart when Chiron moves into Aries. And we have Mars, which is the ruling planet of Aries, at 17 degrees of Capricorn. And the symbol there is a repressed woman finds psychological release in nudism. Release from inhibitions. And so we can see that this is symbolic as the male, as a time for the male to come in to be healed. The women are being freed from their oppression. And we can't really heal the masculine without freeing the feminine. right? And so this is a beautiful energy. This is a hopeful sign. One thing about Aries is they're generally quite hopeful. So this is an important time in our evolution. There's a lot of really heavy things going on with all the Saturn and Capricorn energy, and it's the devil card, and it's darkness. But within the darkness, we find the light. And that we can allow that light to grow as we rebuild and reform the structure of our lives, the structure of our bodies, and the structure of our world. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the full moon that occurs at the end of the month. But I'll check, see if there's anything in between. I'll be right back. I'm right back. There was something in between. And that occurs on April 18th. A lot of stuff going on from the 15th on, right? A lot of changes. And we have the conjunction of the Sun to Uranus. Uranus at 29 degrees of Aries. And if you remember what I said about 29 degrees of Aries, it is the music of the spheres, and the keynote here is attunement to cosmic order. You've heard that before, haven't we? Your keyword, listening to the inner voice. And so this is another opportunity for us to bring awareness and bring illumination around how do we break free and connect with our higher selves. Structure is only bad if it prevents us from evolving. And so it doesn't mean that everything has to come tumbling down, but what it means is that as things begin to tumble down, we need to connect to spirit, because connecting to spirit will sustain us and help us to move through this very chaotic and often difficult period of time. Okay, so let's talk about April 29th. April 29th, we have a full moon, and it's in the sign of Scorpio. With the moon in Scorpio, of course, the sun is in Taurus. The Taurus-Scorpio axis is the axis of life and death. Taurus being life, Scorpio being death. It's about our resources, our own personal resources, and our shared resources. And so this is the axis where we see fear and greed and starvation and genocide and all of that, right? So that doesn't sound very good, except that all the negative aspects of that come from this core fear that we're not safe, that we're not secure, okay? And yet we are. Because this is not the only, this reality that we find ourselves in is not the only reality. There is a higher reality. And we are bigger than we think. And we can break through to that and connect to it. We have that opportunity. This full moon is actually square the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon right now are in Leo, the north node, and Aquarius, the south node. South node in Aquarius requires us to let go of those thoughts and ideas that keeps us trapped and identifying with groups that no longer serve us. It also allows us to stay within our traumas, because Aquarius is trauma, and stay within our disassociated state. It's time to take ourselves back, to reorganize and bring all those disparate pieces of ourselves and our soul together and move in the direction of Leo, which is creative self-expression. This full moon does square it, and when you have a square to the nodes of the moon like this, of the full moon, right? It's moon, it's all about the moon. It's about emotions. And they're in the fixed signs, which is also about emotions. So this is an opportunity for us to release some really long held emotions that hold us back. This is a big time of emotional release. And how that's going to work out for you personally and how it's going to work out in the world, I don't know. What I can say is it's time to let go. This is a big let go, and the moon in Scorpio is about death and rebirth. And so as we release and let go, we are reborn into a new way and a new way of being. So this is an important month. April is pretty powerful, and I'm happy to share this information with you. If you like this kind of information, if you would like to see how April affects your chart or what's going on in your chart with these new moons and full moons and
what's going on with Chiron in your chart, you can certainly schedule a private reading with me. That's easy enough. You can reach me at thecaesartransformation.com, Facebook page, The Caesar Transformation Healing Center. I'm on Facebook personally, Victoria Skirba. You can get a hold of me there. It's an exciting time to be alive, and it's good to have a little bit of direction, perhaps, at least to see where you're going. So I would suggest that to anybody who wants to know a little bit more of, sort of how to go or what to do. Or I wouldn't tell you what to do, but I can certainly tell you the energies around you, and you can make the decision for yourself, because ultimately we're responsible for ourselves, right? So have yourself a great month. Don't get caught into fear. That devil card is, the negative aspect of that is fear. Trust. And one of the things you can do when things get overwhelming is to watch a comedy, and or do something funny or do something silly, because laughing is a great way to break the tension, break the ego, and open yourself up to joy. Have yourself a great month. Ciao.